my end, there's always room for another.
Hey guys, welcome to Turn2, a Hearthstone podcast from Doa and Artosis. We're back again. It's already like episode 5. I can't believe we've already done 5 of these. It's been a lot of fun, hasn't it?
That's quick how fast 5 weeks goes by.
I know. I feel older already. But we've got 2 great guests on them. And speaking of like old guests, I mean, you're not an old person yourself, but you are a veteran of Turn2 already. None other than LS over on, let me look at he's the second from the left. There we go. I had to look at how the windows lined up. How are you doing, man?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I just got done playing like 10 hours of Hearthstone. It's pretty good, yeah.
So say good. We all. Yes. And our he's very still, but if you look really closely, you might see him move, but he's trying to, we're like T-Rexes to him. Our vision is based on movement, so he's like trying not to be noticed so much. It's Strife recently ranked as number 4 actually on the rankings of top Hearthstone players in NA that Blizzard released. So that's pretty awesome. How you doing, man?
Hey, I'm doing good.
Cool. So we have got a lot to talk about. We are only 1 week away, or 1 week post-patch, I guess you could say. And we've got a chance to play now. We've had a chance to see the changes in action, to kind of like feel it out. So I guess I kind of just want to jump right into it, because it was hard for us to like keep ourselves from talking about all this stuff before the show started. But Dan, why don't you start off with us? What do you think? What have you noticed?
It's really interesting the way the decks are going right now. Like Priest, obviously a lot of people are playing Priest. Almost no one seems to be playing Rogue. Like there's very few Rogue decks that I hit anymore. But Rogue is still really strong. It's not like it's dead or anything. It's actually, when I played, I'm like, oh, this is still almost as strong as it was before. It's just not quite. I notice a lot more aggressive decks now, especially Warlock-based. And I think that those are pretty strong. People are like getting better at knowing when to play their minions, like the amount of mana to start holding back because you know like a Flame Strike is coming or something. So I've been seeing a bit more of that, and I've been playing around with some Warlock aggression decks, and they're pretty good. And Warrior is like in a kind of funny place with people. Like everyone's playing all these like 3 health, 4 attack, like charge guys, and the ace guy, and like I don't know. It's kind of all over the place right now. From what I played.
It's interesting. I really like the variation that we're seeing right now. I feel like we're finally seeing like a really good mix of classes, and we're seeing a few more priests because they've got the buffs, and it's pretty neat. But overall, I think it's more varied. What do you think, Strife Crow?
I think before the patch, it was pretty much all dominated at like high masters. It was pretty much all druid and rogue. Like I personally played almost like all like rogue like for the first 2 weeks, and then later on I played like all druid. And like I felt that rogue and druid are very close before. I think like druid was more consistent, and like rogue had like a higher like explosive game if you got like the perfect cards, you know.
Yeah.
But post patch, I think it's actually really close right now. Like I've been playing constructed a lot, and I've actually seen just like pretty much like every class. Like I've seen like a little bit less rogues. I mean that's probably actually like the least common right now. I agree with Artosis, but I actually feel like every class can be competitive right now. Like,
you know, I was tracking.
It is possible.
It does feel like that, yeah.
I was playing my Divine Shield Paladin deck, which seems to be kind of the most successful one that I've had yet to play a lot, and I was tracking my losses with it, and it seemed pretty evenly spread out among the braces, which is something that I was a little bit surprised to see, although I guess I didn't get to play a rogue, but usually that deck beats druids anyway, so no problem. Last Shadow, I know you've been playing a lot of priests too, right?
I've only been playing priest, actually, in ranked.
Oh, well,
I think I feel like I'm actually hitting priests more than other classes, but they're playing it in an aggro sense, probably because of the buffs to like light spawn and stuff. But as far as like what Strifecrow was saying, he's absolutely right that it's very spread right now, like all the classes. It's very like evenly balanced. I actually Rogue, I think I've actually hit them like less than 10 times in almost 150 ladder games. It seems like people are taking the nerfs way too serious. And like, I don't know.
It does tend to happen, yeah.
Yeah, it does tend to happen. But it does feel like every class has a chance right now. So.
Indeed. I think some of the webcams disappeared, but all right, there we go. All right.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll get some. Right now, you're just looking all coy with your portrait.
Ellis?
About what? Which
I
part?
don't know. The whole thing, I like disconnected.
Oh, you actually you just disconnected? No, I was just basically agreeing with Strifeco that like every class kind of has a chance in its own way. Like Hunter right now has the OTK. Priest can be played like mid range or control. Mage is still doing mage. Paladin's still doing paladin. But like I'm seeing every class right now, so I don't know. It feels a lot better post patch in terms of like how ladder's going.
Well, I think
it's
lot
so
of that
clean.
Yeah, there's people are actually getting a lot better at the game too, which is nice. Like
that
I
is
actually
so
see
nice,
more
actually.
smart decisions where they don't just always overcommit or always attack the wrong minion or something. I still feel like right now my kind of feeling is that mage is a little bit weaker than some of these others. Like,
yes,
I feel like I never lose a game to a mage deck. Like I'm hitting a lot of them, but they don't feel quite as scary. You kind of know exactly what they're playing and stuff.
Well, I wanted to mention that too. Yeah, and sorry, Strife Crow, but yeah, I used to play a lot of Icy Manipulator, Frost Mage stuff before the patch, and it was pretty strong then, but it was kind of like right on the edge where I'm like, I don't know if this is actually a top deck. I don't think it is, but it's still pretty good. But now post patch, I've been testing a little bit, and it seems genuinely worse. Like I think Mage actually kind of fell behind a little bit, if any class did. What do you think, Strife Crow? I know you wanted to say something.
Yeah, I think one of the big things are I've been hearing you guys are playing Priest a lot, and I think that the Mage versus Priest matchup is actually just extremely poor for Mages.
It's always been bad for Mages, but now it's
especially
like unwinnable.
how a lot of the Mage decks are based around like freezing your minions for like a long period of time and kind of like tempoing you down with like spells and like that one mage the Apprentice Sorcerer, the 3/2 makes all your guys cheaper, and they're like aggroing you down. But like the one Priest card was the 5 damage heal 5 card. It's like it's like a 10 damage swing versus Mage, and the healing is basically too relevant versus Mage for Priest. I think that's why. But Mage is actually incredibly strong against some of the aggro decks, like especially like those Warlock decks that you guys were talking about, where they're based on like swarming you with like the Blood Imp kind of deck. The Mage is really good against that, so...
Oh, yeah. AoE handles that pretty well. But yeah, I mean, Mage versus Priest, it's like, Priest has almost comparable direct damage now, but also has healing, so you can just outlast Mages every time. And that was already a problem before the patch, but now it's just really, really tough. So I don't know. I mean, it's what's interesting to me is that, like, now when Blizzard looks at this, what do? You can't really buff Mage. You can't really buff their damage or something like that because that's going to make them too good against all those other matchups where they're still good at. Do you give them a little bit of healing? Obviously not, because they're mages. Do you nerf the Priest healing? That's going to adjust the other classes. So we're kind of running into this stuff where like the class system in Hearthstone is going to make it tough to kind of have the game be kind of on that super high competitive level.
There's definitely some. It's kind of funny. Some of the hero powers kind of counter the other ones. Like, I always kind of have a giggle when I'm playing a Hunter deck. Like, I've been playing a lot of the Combo Hunter in the last day, and when I hit a Warlock deck, every time they draw a card, I'm like, because I just don't care. The game is going to end on turn 7 one way or another. So, it's like I feel like that their hero ability just kind of pairs well against that. And like as Stripeko was saying, the Mage is so much about damage spells that Priest just kind of laughs that off and gains enough life.
Yeah, the Warlock one is, I think, like the biggest problem from like a game balance perspective, because the Warlock one, the hero power is just either too good or too bad. Like you were saying, like anytime that your HP actually becomes relevant, versus like an aggressive deck or versus like a Hunter deck where they're trying to chip you down with steady shot, the hero power just almost becomes unusable. But in like kind of like a control versus control type game, where you're like a control deck, you're trying to outlast them, gain card advantage, that hero power becomes just way too strong because you're not threatening kills, and you're like that HP that they're losing isn't relevant, so it's like a big problem kind of.
That's true. You have to be really careful about when and how you use that thing.
We were talking this week about Warlock Murloc decks a little bit, where you can play all those super cheap cards and not worry about ditching your hand really fast, because essentially you'll be able to draw 2 cards per turn with the Warlock hero ability and just keep spamming out those creatures and win early. So it's kind of funny, like, actually, and I don't know why we didn't see this as much pre-patch. There was some Warlock Murloc stuff out there, but right now it seems like that's actually going to be one of the like top decks, I think, at the moment. What do you guys think?
The Murloc deck, like, I was hitting it. It was actually really funny because I've been keeping track of stats on some of my better decks because there's like nothing like that in game. So I'm like, all right, how is this deck really doing against the field right now? Now that we have a balanced patch and the game looks pretty good, and I looked down, I realized almost every loss I had, for instance, from my Shaman Control was against Murloc Warlock. And I was like, what? How could this even be? So I made it and started playing it. And after tuning it just a little bit, like it's unbelievably easy to make, and it's unbelievably easy to play. And I feel like it goes at least 50% against basically everything. It just, like, you feel like you're losing a lot of the time, and then just suddenly you're like, oh, I can swing for 15 this turn? You better clear this board. It's, I don't know, the Murloc decks are pretty good, actually.
It is, and it's more resilient to traditional board clear that would make Murloc decks kind of vulnerable because you can draw those 2 cards per turn, so you can get stuff back out there a little bit faster as well, too. But that'll be interesting. I mean, Murlocs are kind of always that X factor, I feel like, that Blizzard threw in the game. It's actually the 10th class of Hearthstone is Murlocs.
It's like, it's a 10-pool Baneling is what it is, man. It's like
a 3-rack stim timing.
That's a good analogy, yeah. It's really good.
Yeah. But I want to talk about something patch-related that we haven't mentioned yet, and that's that the coin didn't see any changes in the patch. It's still a card. It's still a spell. It's still there for turn 2. With all the other patch changes, what are your opinions on the card? Has it changed? Is it not as big of a deal anymore? What do you think?
It shouldn't be a spell. Like
yeah. I mean, it shouldn't even be there. It shouldn't.
The funny.
Well,
here's
you need
the funny
a coin.
thing.
I mean, you need something to make it better to go.
You do need something.
Just
not
a
card.
Second
You
turn,
get the extra. You get the extra draw.
Yeah, but that, I mean, that in like control versus control, that would be fine. But then you look at some of these other matchups when you add in these aggressive decks.
You don't get an extra draw actually, because if you think about it, you only get half it. Like, it's only half a card difference between every turn.
That's true. Yeah.
Because if you because of how the turns work, like it's the first player's turn, then the second player's turn. It's like you can never be 1 card ahead of someone, only half a card ahead of somebody, because the next turn they'll draw a card too, and they're making the first move. So you don't actually get a extra card, because on their second turn, like the second turn they're making, you're only getting 1 turn before them, and they're drawing the card that turn too. You see what I'm saying? So, I mean, you definitely need something to give player 2 an advantage to balance it out. So,
pre-patch I felt. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm not sure if like the coin is the right way to do it, but I think it's a decent way to do it because
Should it be a spell,
shouldn't
though?
be a spell is what you're saying, yeah. And that's
shouldn't be a spell, shouldn't be a card in hand. That's the only problem I have with it. I'm fine with the extra mana and the extra draw now. After playing a lot post-patch, I'm like, all right, I'm okay with that. But I still don't like the idea of it being a card and being a spell. Even if it's not game impacting so much right now, I just don't like the concept of it having that role.
The problem with it being like a spell is it's kind of making some decks like more tuned towards playing second. Like,
right. I don't think any deck should have to rely on turn 2,
exactly.
too much. Yeah.
Especially with like the Defias, what's it called? Defias
Ring
things.
Right.
That's much more manageable now, though, I feel.
Yeah, it is more manageable, but that thing's still, like, the fact that it's a spell, when people play down, like, Gajizan and then play that and another spell, I'm like, so now you get to draw 2 cards because you got the coin.
Yeah.
Okay, I guess so. Yeah. And then, like, they play down Illidan and they play the coin, and then they play another spell. I'm like, yeah, I guess you should have 2 2-1s right now because you got the coin.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
I'm not playing an aggressive deck, so you didn't have to use the coin early on, so I guess you get a big advantage in the late game when everything's kind of evened out. Yeah, that makes sense, yeah. The thing should not be a spell. The card in hand is, like, more arguable, because card in hand effects you're going to want to get out quicker anyways, because you have the coin, you might want to use it for that. Like, even when I played my Twilight Drake, I played on turn 3 when I have the coin, like, every time, because it's still a sizable hand. It's still... By the way, Twilight Drake is still good.
Twilight Drake's
good.
He's
Yeah,
still
so
good.
In fact,
good.
I think there's a lot of like I personally didn't really like Twilight Drake pre-patch because it was too like swingy, like it was too good or too bad. But I actually kind of prefer the new Twilight Drake, even though it's kind of weaker, obviously a lot of times. But when you get silence, at least it trades with something else. So.
I actually agree with Strife Crow on the Drake, and I saw that expression, Artosis, but like I think it's more like a player style thing. Like maybe I don't know, Strife Crow, are you more of an aggressive player? Because I certainly am, and so for me that card
No,
didn't
the
work out in a
opposite.
lot of decks. Okay, well I didn't like it because I played aggro, but you didn't like it just because you didn't like it. All right.
I don't like taking any risks. Almost like I play as like safe as possible all the time.
I agree with that. Anything that makes your deck more consistent is going to get you more
Yeah.
wins. Yeah, consistency is like, in my opinion, the most important thing in building a deck.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Which is why Murloc is so good, because every game is the
Absolutely.
exact same game, man.
Yeah.
That's right, and the
draws
Hunter
are almost
combo deck,
relevant.
yeah, everything is the same. You just draw a bunch and then you play your hand, like.
Yeah.
But that's actually how you win CCGs. Like that's what makes good CCG decks is consistency. If you can have a concept that wins games that you can do every game, or the more often you can do that concept and execute it in the game, the better your deck is going to be. So
Right.
that's what CCGs need, consistency. So that's how it is. So I wanna move on. Now something happened that surprised some people, surprised some of us on Tuesday, where suddenly our rankings were gone, and it said, "Congratulations, you hit Masters 3 last week. Now press start, select for new challenge," right, or something. It's a ladder reset that they're apparently going to do every week because it did mention weekly in it. There was a blue post yesterday. I'm going to quote it here from who was it? Let's see. I didn't see the person who posted, but it was the rank ladder system was reset. This was done in order to help us test the ladder reset functionality as we continue to work on and develop how ladder systems will be implemented for Hearthstone. So is it going to be a continuously weekly thing, or is this just a beta testing sort of phase thing? I certainly hope it is. I absolutely detest the concept of a weekly ladder reset. I think it's bad on a very large amount of levels.
Yeah.
But I want to get your opinions on it. Artosis, what do you think, man?
Well, first off, do we know if the MMR resets?
I am
I don't-
99.9% sure because I'm suddenly not playing against any of the people I was playing against before. And I know there's been more invites, but also the quality of deck and the quality of players has gone way down since I've started again and started grinding up. So I don't have any confirmation on that, but I'm pretty positive that your MMR resets.
I think that's an important aspect. If I have to grind through newbies every week,
Yeah.
then I literally will just stop playing the game. Like that is undoable. Like the ladder will not be a system. I will only play customs, because
Right.
Ooh,
Yeah.
like I can't even tell you. I get so frustrated. Like if now they have MMR decay in the StarCraft ladder, and if I'm traveling for a month, suddenly I have to grind through noobs again, and it's like, and
People in
it's
chat
more
are-
relevant there because like you get worse when you're not practicing. But in a card game, it's
Now-
not like your mechanics.
Yeah.
go down,
I was just about to say
People
that
in chat
MMR.
are saying, did it? Now, do we have
Stays
any
the
like?
same.
Where's the post that says it didn't reset? I haven't seen that.
Okay, that's good.
I haven't.
Then-
Yeah, I haven't seen
Well,
that.
I still don't
'Cause
care for the
I feel like I'm playing really bad people right now.
reclimbing the ladder, but like
It's well. Here's the other
mean,
thing too: is that like,
I guess
if-
it doesn't
if-
matter.
well, yeah. Now rankings just don't matter at all, right? Because if the MMR is really not reset, and yeah, I want to see that quote because I haven't seen it yet. But if it's not reset, then what does my ranking even mean? Like it's like a little badge. Maybe I'll get like some gold or something like that at the end of each week. Like, who cares now? I'm not gonna. I have no ambition to try to like get these medals now if I get to keep playing against the same people. So
Yeah, well, I guess it doesn't matter as long as the MMR
Yeah, it
isn't
just doesn't
reset.
matter.
You get to play the best players, even if I could be in bronze and someone's already grinded their way to 3-star master. It's we're still gonna be hitting each other. So I'm not. I guess it
See,
doesn't
that's-
matter.
that
What's
just
the
seems
point,
weird to
though?
me though because
It's
I feel like
bizarre,
I feel like I really saw a drop in quality of like the decks and the people playing them after the reset too. So
That could have been just that they released a lot more beta keys or something.
that
too.
could,
Yeah.
that could be, I guess, that could be just more people coming in, but I don't know. Yeah, I don't like it either way.
Mm.
No.
It makes it too cell phone game-ish for me.
Are they gonna release Grandmaster for ranked?
Maybe, I guess.
That'll probably be when the game actually releases.
When it actually releases.
Maybe,
People are already complaining a lot about how people are getting head starts, and if people are already, on the Grandmaster ladder, some people are not going to be happy. So.
Yeah, but there's no such thing as a real head start in a CCG. There's no such thing.
Yeah.
If I were to go and pick up a Magic, booster pack at a store, am I going to complain that I'm 20 years behind the people that have been played from Alpha? Like, no, that's just not how it is. Like, you're going to spend money. I mean, that's, like, how the game is. It's like...
Yep.
You're maybe 1,000 gold behind in terms of players that are in the beta. Like, if you actually consider the quests and the
there is
ranks.
some amount of praxing and stuff, but if you're actually reading about it, like, you don't have to actively play. It's not a game with mechanics. Like, you can actually watch streams and gain a huge amount of information and stuff. It's like...
Well, I feel like it's even less of a factor in Hearthstone, too, because if you start the game post-wipe, then you're just going to be playing against other people that are in the same boat as you, So it's not like you're going to be hitting all those people that, like us, that spent a lot of money on it, that have been playing for a couple of months. We're going to be, apparently, if the MMR's not reset, we're going to be playing all those other people at the top, So there's really no concern about that, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, I don't mean a head start as in, like, the cards or the skill. I just mean, like, because the Grandmaster ladder is supposed to be kind of like a status thing, or who the best players are. But,
okay, you mean getting into Grandmaster? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. I don't mean like I don't mean just getting better at the game or the mechanics and practice and stuff. So.
That makes sense. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, well, that would definitely be an advantage in that way, but like
you would have to wipe it.
I guess people care about that type of thing a lot, like getting their high ranks, but. If they do, like, a Grandmaster ladder, they can't be resetting every week. Yeah. Because every Monday, everyone races up to Grandmaster, and it's got, like, 200 slots like StarCraft. So, like, since I'm in a different time zone, I'm like, well, unless I get up at 4 a.m. every Monday,
still has 10 slots.
Just, like, take the day off on the weekly ladder reset to grind up the Grandmaster.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's... I'm still looking for that MMR thing. I haven't seen it yet, but I just... I guess... If that's all the case, I don't really care too much about my ranked medals anymore. I mean, it was nice to be in Masters 3, but if I'm playing all the same people, like that's I'd rather play good quality people than have like a shiny icon, So, there we go.
Well, I don't care that much now that I know that MMR isn't reset, says guy in the chat, so that's really I am upset when I have to grind through things. Like every time I have a new StarCraft account or something, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be the most boring 2 days to get it up to where I can lose games, But no, it's fine. It's fine.
Yep. Cool. Well, I guess sorry, I was looking. Somebody linked the post supposedly, but anyway, let's see. Moving on. Speaking of ladder, speaking of the trends and things like that we've been seeing, we talked about this a little bit already with the patch stuff, but now it's time to talk about
blue post.
Yeah, there's the blue post. Yep. So okay, there it is.
There is a blue post.
MMR not reset. So there you go.
Yep, I just linked it in Skype.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. All right, crisis averted. Good.
Crisis averted. So you were just playing all the new people.
I guess so. That's okay. I don't mind that so much.
It's fine.
I want to talk about the Paladin secret deck I've been playing, guys.
It's kind of tell us about this.
It's a little bit silly. It's a little bit silly.
It sounds silly. When you say you're playing a Paladin secret deck, that does sound silly, though. That's true.
It's the kind of deck I make, but it's pretty good because all the Paladin secrets are one, and when you get the coin, you can put a secret keeper out with a secret. You get the secret bonus, and then you also get a 2/3 immediately. Then the next turn, if you have two other secrets in your hand, you can pump it up to like a 4/5. And then you start to play taunting guys to keep it safe. It's fun. I'm gonna put a guide out on it, but it's my point in bringing up my ridiculous Paladin secret deck is to broach the topic of what are you guys playing right now on the ladder? What's working? What's not working? What was working and maybe isn't working again? Strifecrow, what have you been playing lately?
The deck I've been having most success with is the deck that was fairly similar to the Druid deck I had pre-patch. I've actually played Mage, Priest, Druid, Paladin, and Rogue. Like, I've played a decent amount of classes, and that's the one I've been still having the most success with. I don't think I've tuned, like, all the other decks as well, so... The deck is basically based on a lot of ramp. It uses both Innervate and Wild Growth, and it uses a lot of mid-range creatures like Azure Drake and Venture Co, Argent Crusader, and if you don't get the ramp, you can. Druid Power is pretty good at holding off stuff early, and there's stuff like Wrath, and I'm actually using a couple of Harvest Golems to hold off early in the game as well, so it's
cool.
pretty good. It goes all the way up to Ragnaros. I used to run Cenarius as well, but Cenarius kind of got nerfed. I thought that, like, out of the 2 8-drops I used pre-patch, Ragnaros and Cenarius, I thought that Ragnaros was the better one. And they actually nerfed Cenarius, so I probably
agree with that.
Won't even use Cenarius anymore. Like, Cenarius at 9, like being like a 5/8 and a 2/2/2 taunters almost always, just seems, if you want to go up to 9, you could even use something like Onyxia, which would almost be like strictly better, because Onyxia is a 8/8, I believe, and it fills up your board with 1/1s, so that almost will never be worse than Cenarius. Seems weird that would happen, because Cenarius is class specific, and mostly class specific cards are stronger than the neutral ones, legendary or not. So I don't know. I think the Cenarius nerf is kind of overdoing it.
It's a little bit surprising. There was some surprising stuff that happened in the patch, like Frostbolt going to 2 mana instead of 3. That was a little bit
so weird.
That was a little bit weird too.
So broken. I think. I don't know.
Wait,
that allows
which card?
Frostbolt going to 2 mana instead of 3.
Oh, that's 3
so
damage and freeze.
Silly. Yeah.
It's like
pretty strong.
It is good now for sure. I mean, it's really good now.
So awesome now.
God.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, it's as far as like nerfing either Ragnaros or Cenarius, that I was a little bit surprised too. Again, like why they would take a hit at the class cards when like Ragnaros actually can fit well in nearly any deck in Hearthstone. He's actually just one of the best cards in the game.
Yeah.
I think they were clearly targeting Druids on that one, because Druid and Rogue got basically like all the nerfs, and the other classes all got like slight buffs or like kind of nothing. But it's just, I think there were some problems with Druids pre-patch, but I don't know about nerfing that legendary, because there's so many other alternatives that it wouldn't even change the strength of Druid, kind of, because you just
got
use
stuff like
legendaries.
Well, you've got stuff like Swipe that didn't get changed at all. I mean, that's
Swipe
still
was actually the best Druid nuke or removal, and they didn't touch that.
Yeah,
they touched the other
yeah.
ones.
It's still really good. I was kind of expecting them to. The Swipe nerf I've been expecting is like make it sort of like Frost Nova, sort of where it hits adjacent guys instead of like every other minion. But the ability to cast it on the hero rather than on a minion is so strong. Yeah, if anything needed nerfing for Druids, it'd be Swipe, I'd say.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I guess in a broader sense, like, it actually kind of doesn't matter that much, because it's not like a game like Magic, for example, where if you're trying to nerf like a particular deck, you have to nerf like a couple key cards in the deck, because Hearthstone is like class specific. Like every single like spell is class specific. So even if Swipe was the best Druid nuke already, if you do want to nerf Druid, you can still keep Swipe as just an incredibly strong card, but nerf some of the other weaker supporting spells. I'm not sure if that's the right way to do it, but it kind of achieves the same thing, So.
Yeah, I mean, that's one luxury Blizzard does have over like traditional CCGs too, where they can just make minor adjustments in the cards that exist rather than banning cards or releasing cards that counter other stuff. So that is kind of cool. But Last Shadow, you've been playing only Priest? Have you been playing only one kind of Priest deck?
I tempered with mid-range Priest with Dan with a little bit. I only played like maybe 10 games or something total. And then I went back to my normal Priest control, and that's sitting at, with personally recorded stats, 101 and 22 at Masters 3, which isn't bad when you factor in like some of those losses is like pre-fixing against Murlocs and like Hunter and stuff. But like some of the new things that I've added into my decks and I've gained like new understanding on is the Black Knight is actually one of the most underrated cards in the entire game, and I can't like tell you how many times he's just broken games wide open for me. Like I think Dan agrees with this now too.
Black Knight is like my new favorite card. He's
my new Ragnaros.
Like really cool. I've actually seen him a lot more recently because like most decks play at least a few decent taunts, and even if you're just smacking down like Like a lot of the times he actually just kills Senjin, and I'm like, well, I mean that's a removal right there. Now I have a 4/5. You know, this is
that guy's annoying to deal with. Yeah,
he's a cool card. I really like him a lot for any control deck.
I think he's quite good against the traditional Druid control, just to get rid of like an Ironbark Protector or something like that.
Oh
late
yeah,
game. That's
oh
pretty
god,
huge.
against Druid he is the best. He is so
Oh,
good
yeah.
against.
Yep.
If you get Ironbark, that's like over. Or against the Earth Elemental, those are some gigantic counters.
Oh yeah, Earth Elemental's smacking him, and then they're like all overloaded and sad.
No, one
That's
of
the
the
worst.
yeah, Black Knight is so strong against Ironbark because it still leaves mana open on your turn 9 or whatever to respond to it. But one of the other things with Priest that I guess is new to the patch is Faceless Manipulator with Shadow Word Death lets you get through legendaries, copying it and killing them,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
that's technically better than a mind control. Like it's
Yes.
like a
Yeah, it's only 8 mana still. Yeah.
yeah, it's a niche mind control. So I don't know. But I mean, every class has its weakness. Priest does have its weakness to mid-range stuff. What Stripecrow was saying about his mid-range, like Argent Commanders and stuff that have exactly 4 attack, that's really brutal against Priest.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
really
Yeah.
brutal.
My Priest deck has some hard times against like specifically four damage minions, and which makes a lot of warrior decks tough too, because a lot of them are playing a lot of this four attack guys. So
I've
That's-
noticed my Divine Shield Paladin still does pretty well against Priest, just because when I have my Sword of Justice out, a lot of it goes up to 4 attack too. So I kind of
Yep.
hit that sweet spot with a lot of those as well.
Yep. So nice.
I kind of feel alone in the world of Hearthstone right now, though, because I'm still trying to like make aggro work, but it's still I'm still getting that feeling that it makes me feel awful. But it's like there's just a little bit too much early board control in Hearthstone right now, I think, for aggro to be as good as an archetype as control. There's a couple exceptions. There's a couple okay aggro decks out there, but overall, I think control's the way to go right now in the game.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
gonna
a
keep
lot
trying
of
to push
AoE. There's too
Yeah,
much
that
like
too.
cheap AoE, basically.
Yeah.
there's a lot. But some of this aggro stuff, like I've been playing a lot of Murloc Warlock recently, and it's like it's the most consistent deck. It's just because all the cards are the exact same card basically. So
Yeah.
and
yeah.
that plus you draw with the Warlock. Like I could use the Warlock ability like 10 times with this deck, you know, because your life doesn't matter. You're gonna kill them or you lose, and that's it. But I mean, I think that's a pretty strong one. And I was hitting these like Magic players that were playing some Warlock aggro type stuff that wasn't Murloc, like just all their cheap stuff, you know, the Leper Gnomes and stuff like that, and some of the card draw, the pint-sized summoners, and like Felguards, Doomguards, stuff like that. And that's pretty good too, actually, as far as aggro goes. Like, it really feels like aggro decks, though, unless it's like a Divine Paladin, because Divine Paladin's just funny with Divine Shield, but like, other than that, it feels like you need to make it Warlock, just because it's the only way to guarantee you get enough cards. Otherwise, they're like so efficient with their removal.
I've noticed that with the Shaman token deck that I played a long time, and it did pretty well in Masters 3 early on in the beta. But once people figured out how to like save their spells and play properly, now that deck just like hardly wins at all. And what I'm talking about is I have all the cards in it that do like play this and summon a guy, you know. And then I combine that with like Flame Tongue Totem and stuff like that and Bloodlust to like get a quick win. But right now, yeah, people are just getting too good at playing against it. So I've kind of retired it for now, but it's too bad. I still have hope. Like obviously Warrior has a lot of good aggressive options. I've got an Enrage Mage deck. It's not...
I hit an Enrage Mage that was actually badass. Like, it was one of the only
It
mage
is
decks I've
badass.
lost.
It's not consistent. It's not consistent yet.
Yeah.
Once like another expansion or two come out and like Blizzard has more of that kind of stuff in there, like I think it's going to be really good. But right now, it's just like another fun sort of Johnny deck, you know. To use the Magic the Gathering term.
Let's talk about Hunter Combo for a minute, because this deck is like really, really funny, and I've found this out that. Okay, so Hunter Combo. We started talking about this right before we started the podcast, so let's talk about it again. Now, Hunter Combo, for those of you who don't know, it revolves around, you just kind of have like some board clear and stuff and some secrets to slow them down, and you deal some damage with them with your hero power and stuff. And then you play, like, around turn 7, maybe turn 8, matters if you have the coin or not and what your hand looks like. But you play the Vulture guy, and then you play all the 1-cost beasts, and then you play
Charge.
what's the name of that? The charge thing.
It's, yeah.
Enrage
Unleash the Hounds or something.
Yeah,
Release the Hounds. Yeah.
And Unleash the Hounds.
Unleash the
and
Hounds. Yeah.
Then with that, plus like the Young Dragonhawks and also the Timberwolves,
Yeah,
like
they all buff each other.
it basically swing for about 20 around like turn 7. Like, and that's from having nothing on the board. You hit like 20, so you deal some damage on the way with just random stuff. It's such a funny deck. Like, if I play it against a deck that we would consider like really good, like a very tight top end deck that people are using, it does really quite well. Like, it can kind of slaughter them. But if you play a deck that you'd kind of consider more bad, like something that just randomly has like a ton of taunts, or like randomly has all these minions that are about 4/4-ish, then you get slammed. You're like, oh, this deck fizzles out every time against this type of thing. But against you give me like you give me a strong druid controller or something. Yeah, no, that's actually what it is. Like, if you played this constructed deck in Arena, you'd lose, but you play it against good constructed decks, and it's like it is bad. It feels imbalanced, like against like strong constructed decks, because they, it's almost like a metagame combo deck or something.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about that?
The hunter go.
No, I was gonna say I think that's pretty much right. Yeah, and the funny thing is you were talking about the arena type decks where people just put like a lot of the popular arena cards in their constructed deck. It's funny, but like a lot of those actually do decently against some of the more popular decks up in Masters 3. Like, they don't win a lot, but you have these games where it's just like, I shouldn't be losing against this, but they just keep putting out like their Chillwind Yeti or something, and you just happen to not get the draw you needed that you would have every other game, but you just didn't have that game. So it's funny seeing those come up.
That is funny. I see a lot of Chillwind Yetis right now, but
dude, Chillwind Yeti's.
I'm like, is that all your card does right there? And
he's a good card. He's fantastic in Arena. He's a solid card overall. It's a good, efficient card, but it's just not good.
No, I know the deck you're talking about though, like Chillwind Yetis and Spellbreakers and stuff, and like they play the Spellbreaker. I'm like, I'm actually quite surprised you played that. Okay.
Like, yeah, I'm like, well, I guess I'll just Hammer of Wrath that and draw a card. Thanks, man. But yeah. But yeah, I agree. What last Shadow? What were you gonna say? LS. I mean, you go by. LS.
There you go. Yeah. No, the OTK Hunter is like really neat. A lot of people are complaining about it, but I feel like it takes timing and understanding on how to build up to it without putting yourself in risk or danger. So
it's a good deck.
It's a skillful deck. It actually is. A lot of people discredit it as not being skillful, but it is, because you have to understand how to hold your hand, when to play what cards, when to use your passive. Like, it's fragile, like any OTK decks in any CCG. So it's a good deck, and like every deck, it has its weaknesses. But Dan's absolutely right. There's a lot of people that run these like arena decks. That's what I'm just gonna label them, and they end up beating legitimate decks because they're so bad that they're good. Like,
the thing is, all the decks right now, all the top decks, I think, are kind of metagaming each other.
Totally. Yeah, a little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
So these mid-range vanilla creatures are just suddenly like really good against them. Yeah. It's like you suddenly have the Chillwind Yeti out, and I'm like, oh, I guess that does beat Sen'jin Shieldmaster, in a certain way.
I want to ask Strifecrow, have you noticed this too, where like for me, it's when I'm playing in like Masters 3 and all that, I have like my deck for the week that's working really well, and then like the meta kind of shifts. I'm like, oh, I have to pull out this deck again because this is how it shifted over, and then that works for a while. Like, have you had to sort of like change decks over time too with that? Have you noticed that like weekly meta shift up in high Masters?
Yeah, like the whole time I was playing, a lot of what happened in my constructed like journey was I'd like kind of make a deck, and if it didn't work out, I'd kind of try like something else, and like sometimes it'd just click, where I'd win like 20 in a row or something like that in arena. I'm not in arena, in constructed, and eventually after like I thought that like I figured it out, that was like the best deck, but like after like a week, every time that deck would have like gradually like lower and lower and lower win rate until it went to like 50%. I'd like lose every other game, and then I would like make a new deck, and then like it'd go back up. I would win like 20 in a row again, and I'd play that for like another week. So that like the meta game is definitely like changing all the time, especially after the patch. So it's like the decks that I thought were like pretty much like as good as he can get. It turned out that wasn't even close, you know. So.
Yeah, it's definitely been like that. Like with my Divine Shield Paladin deck, at first that like won every single game almost. Then people got to like handle it. The more the control stuff came out, and I was like, well, this isn't fast enough, so I switched over to my Token Shaman deck, which is really quick. Started winning a ton again. Then like all the rogues started coming out and everything, so I went back to Divine Shield because that's really good against rogue. But yeah, it's we've never really had like a CCG sort of like ladder like this before. And it's interesting to see kind of how the decks people are playing shift on, like, I feel like it's every 4 to 5 days. I see like a significant shift in like what people are playing.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Yeah. That's kind of neat. But all right, so I'm gonna make you guys break out of your comfort zones for a second here. You control players, you have to tell me if you were going to play aggro, what deck would you build? And it can't be Murloc. And why? It can't be Murloc.
All right.
We'll start with you, Artosis. You seem like you're ready.
I would use the other Warlock aggros. Like, they have like Blood Imp is pretty cool. Soulfire is like kind of ridiculous as like a finisher. Leopard Gnomes in any aggro deck, of course. Like the Flame Imp, the guards actually are like really nice endgame type things. Mm-hmm. And in fact, Felguard is like pretty sick turn 2 with Coin Man. He's got 5 health, so he's like, unless you're playing against Priest, he's going to be a pain in the ass to get rid of. So, I don't know, I played against that a little bit, and I thought it was like pretty neat. And, I mean, any aggro deck, I feel like, some of the other classes have really good spells to go with aggro decks, but I love the hero power of Warlock. If you're going to be aggressive, there's no substitute.
Except no substitute. All right. Last Shadow, you're up.
Well, I agree completely with Dan. I don't want to kind of reiterate what he said. I do believe that would be the best. I know. I do believe that would be the best aggro class just because of the passive. Like you can spam burst 1, 2, and 3 drops and then use life tap with synergy on turn 5 and 6. Mm-hmm. But if I wasn't going to do that, I would probably play Hunters. Running like Bestial Rats, because I feel like it's a very underrated card, and I feel like if Asians were playing the game, they would find ways to use that. And that's very specific, and it basically goes over to how Japanese and Taiwan and Korea approaches like Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Magic. Very unique, weird things that other people just wouldn't deem worthy. If it wasn't going to be that, it would probably be some sort of warrior thing, because some of their cards...
I'm looking for this Bestial Wrath card. I don't even know what it is.
Give a beast +2 attack and immunity this turn.
Oh yeah.
So it can't die.
Some people have been using that a little bit. I've seen that.
Yeah.
Huh.
But I think Savannah Highmane is one of the best technically aggro cards in the game in a way.
It's good. You get the 2/2s out of it. I mean, that's nice. Like you combo that with your Buzzard or whatever. It's good.
Yeah. So
Snake Trap Buzzard's hilarious, by the way.
Yes, I have hit that, unfortunately, many times.
It's like the first trick in the book in Hearthstone. Like that was the first big thing, that you had to play around. Like do week 1 in beta, you hit it, and you're like, oh, never again.
It's like it's only 2 cards out of 30, but we can still call it the Snake Trap deck. I don't get it. All right, Strife Crow. If you were playing aggro, what would you play aside from Warrior, Warlock, and Shaman? You have to pick something.
Aside from the Warlock aggros, I think one that has some potential is like a Paladin aggressive deck. I know you're playing the Secret one, but the one that I was kind of thinking of isn't based on a Secret Keeper. Basically, it kind of revolves around like having just at least one creature on board, because Paladin, the hero power is kind of perfect for that. Like, you can generate tokens whenever the 1/1s whenever you want. But there's a lot of some of the most efficient creatures in the game actually are ones that buff other creatures on entering. Stuff like the Norshire Cleric and even things like the Wolf that gives adjacent mains +1 attack. Paladin has a lot of them too, like the one that gives another one Divine Shield. So I would be using a lot of like creatures that are like one creature that's actually 2 creatures. Things like Harvest Golem, and there's another 3-drop that's a 2/3 and a 1/1, like the Beast kind of thing. And
Razorfen.
Yeah. And then I'd be using there's a paladin weapon called Sword of Justice, which gives all minions +1/+1 when they enter. So basically, like the aggressive deck I was thinking about was based on like a lot of creatures that are actually 2 creatures, a lot of creatures that give like buffs to other creatures, and like enter the battlefield. You give something Divine Shield. You can go up to like a decent amount of mana, maybe like 4 to 5. True Champion gives you some reach at the end. I'm not sure how small it would go to be considered aggro, but I mean that's something that you could do. I'd probably go up to 6. I mean, my favorite card in the whole game, I haven't talked about this, but is Argent Crusader. I think it's like incredibly
So good,
underrated.
Dude. Yeah. No, he's in like almost every deck I play. Yeah.
But I think he's basically, if you had to take like, I think that's like the strongest neutral minion in the game. If you
Argent
don't count,
Commander.
Really,
Argent.
Argent Commander, the 4/3 charger with Divine Shield for 6.
Yeah, he's good.
Like
He's awesome, man.
So sick.
it's just the way that Divine Shield and Charge synergize together. Like Charge by itself is good, and Divine Shield by itself is good, but when you combine these 2 effects into one creature, it becomes like exponentially better, because like the weakness of something that has like Divine Shield, for example, is you can kind of just pop it with maybe like a Shiv or like a random like 1/1 attacking into it. But when you add in Charge with the Divine Shield, it becomes you that can choose what you want to pop the Divine Shield with. You can pop it into like something like a gigantic like 8/8 or like a 4/5, and you can get like extreme value from the Divine Shield. So I just really like those two mods on one creature. And it kind of turns that creature into like almost like a spell, because
totally.
Yeah.
Like normally if you think about how a spell would work, like you kind of throw a spell on a creature and remove it, but if a creature with taunt, with charge is kind of like a spell, but most of the time it's less efficient than a spell and it just dies if you charge into it. But Argent Crusader it's like a spell that leaves behind a 4/3 after, so.
It's kind of like do 4 damage to a minion or a player and get a 4/3 for 6 mana.
Yeah, like you compare it to like a spell like Starfire, 6 mana to do 5 damage to anything. Starfire draws you the card after, but Argent Crusader does 4, 1 less, but it leaves behind a 4/3, and you have to value the 4/3, maybe a lot higher than a random card in your deck, because the 4/3 is already played on the battlefield, so.
With the other buffing it'll get too, it can become a lot more valuable too. I actually ran the deck you described a month or 2 ago. That was a deck I made after I was running a lot of Divine Paladin when the beta first started. But then I ended up switching to Shaman, like the Shaman version of that, because I found that I felt like I needed more board clear that the Shamans have. They have a lot more AoE board clear, and then the Totem synergy I felt was like a little bit bigger, and then you have stuff like Flame Tongue Totem. So I actually ran that deck that you were talking about, but in the end, it seemed like Shamans just offered a little bit more than like those neutral, like the Wolves and stuff offered it.
There's like one explosive kind of draw that you can get that's just extremely strong for Shaman. Like I've always wondered like how this deck would do. I haven't got around to making it. It's the Dust Devil. Like you'd think that card is really bad, but with the with Rogue being a lot less prevalent right now, I think that deck might have a good place in the meta, because Rogues can counter like those one toughness creatures so easily, and that one has Overload too, where if you play it and it gets killed, you're not in a very good position. But if you can get like a Dust Devil out and it doesn't die, and then you start buffing it with like Rock Biter weapons or Flame Tongue Totems, you can pretty much do like 15 damage on by turn 2 even, if you get lucky.
You're not worried about him being like eliminated immediately? Because I feel like if you don't draw him turn 1, and then if you don't get lucky with him on turn 1, he's just like a dead draw. That's why I've never used him anyway. I don't know. It
is really risky, but it leads to some really explosive things. But actually, I'm not even sure if the best turn to use it is turn 1, because turn 1, if they kill it immediately, you're overloaded for your whole mana bar, which is like basically it could be game over. But if you actually bring it into the late game, like let's just say like turn 5 or 6, even like 7 or something, you just play it and it gets removed. It's not gonna ruin you basically, and they still kind of have to remove it right away. So by then, it's like it's absorbing like a spell that could be better used on another minion. So that deck actually would be really skill intensive to play because you'd have to weigh, like you couldn't always play your 1-drop on turn 1. You know, you'd have to weigh when you want to play it. So.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'll have to give him a try. I don't know. I'm still really nervous about that guy. I'm scared of the Dust Devil. What? Go ahead.
Speaking of Shaman cards, I know we were talking about some aggressive stuff, but like I've started to use Farsight. It's really interesting. Farsight as a card. Like I still don't even know how to use it correctly. I just keep trying it in different circumstances, like playing it quickly, playing it late game, because it kind of cycles through your deck towards your better cards in a certain way. A lot of the times it just sets up like a really strong turn where I do stuff you don't quite expect because it costs 3 less mana a different turn. But like if you think about it, like let's say you start with Coin on turn 3, you cast this, you can have a turn 4 Ragnaros. You know, like you could, if you get lucky off of it, obviously. But I don't know. What do you guys think about that card? Because I still am undecided, but I've been using it a lot lately.
I never thought of it before that the card that you draw will permanently cost 3 less.
Yeah.
Yeah, I glossed over that one when I looked at it in the past because I kind of like, oh, it's kind of like preparation sort of. But I love the top post on Hearthpawn is most useless card ever. But no, I think you're right. I think you could.
No way.
Wow. Yeah, I agree though. I think you could get like a turn 4 Ragnaros with it. That is interesting.
Well, I mean that hasn't happened to me, but most of the time it'll just be. Even if I get like a 1 or 2 cast cost spell, now it's free. You know, a lot. It's like something I play when there's not a whole lot else to do. A lot of the time, I'm still playing around with it because I feel like the one thing I really like about it is that my Shaman deck has like a certain number of cards that I actually want to draw. You know, and it kind of thins that out a little bit, which is cool. Like late game, it's not dead unless it's like the last card in your deck and you just don't play it. I don't know. It can be pretty neat. Like I'll do it, and then suddenly I get like a Monotide Totem, right? And then I'm like, okay, later on I can play this same turn as a taunt, and he's probably going to live twice. Or I'll get like the Wolves or something. I'm like, okay, well I don't want to be overloaded this turn, so I'm going to save this for later on when I play a big creature. Like maybe I'm going to play a Ragnaros and that in 2 turns or something. You know, because now it's 0. So
it's a very compelling argument.
It can be pretty neat. Like I've gotten quite a few times. I get like what is the name of that guy? Earth Elemental.
And you get him as a 2. Yeah.
And then you have him as a 2-drop sometimes. There's been turns where I played 2 Earth Elementals on like turn 7, and it's like, well, I'm completely overloaded next turn, but let's deal with both these guys right now. Let's see it.
No, Farsight is such an interesting card. I think a lot of people underrate it because they don't understand like that. It's cycling. If you're from Magic the Gathering, it's cycling, and cycling is huge in a 30-card deck where by turn 1, technically, you've already drawn 1/7 of your deck almost. So the cycling aspect's huge. The fact that it can allow you to put down a legendary or like an 8-drop on turn 5 is super neat because now you can put it down, say on turn 10, you can put down the 5-drop legendary plus something else to protect the legendary or something. Yeah. Farsight has so many, like, it's such a neat little card, and oftentimes there's going to be turns where you're just not doing anything. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like
especially with Shaman, because
especially with Shaman.
A lot of the times when you have overload, you're like, well, okay, I have to do these powerful effects this turn. Next turn is going to be kind of a waste. I don't have that much mana. Do I totem? Do I Farsight? Like, what do I do with that turn?
And like Dan, I think we talked about this before when I was playing the Paladin Holy Wrath. I mean, not every player is going to want to do this, but if you know the entire mana curve of your deck and you're playing like a real CCG player is competitively, you're marking down all the cards that you've been played, your opponent's played, the mana costs of those cards. You can do mathematical probabilities based on what Farsight could potentially hit, based on what's remaining in your deck. And then you can kind of play it with more judgment on it, I guess, so to say.
I feel like a big part of Hearthstone in general, and this kind of goes along with it, is going to be in the future. One of the trends we're going to see is people trying to like push the highest mana curve they possibly can, because this game does have such an unsafe turn 1 through 3 for like the cheap drops in the game. So anything people can do to sort of like get that bigger stuff out, you know, safely. I think that's going to be like a big priority in the future for Hearthstone.
Mm. Anyways, it's a really cool card. I'm gonna keep on messing around with it. It's like
it's interesting.
I've set up some funny turns with it, man. Like it really does. Like if I get like a lightning storm or something, then suddenly if they have a bunch of minions out, they don't expect me to be able to do like 2 lightning storms and a fork lightning, you know. And then suddenly I've dealt like 8 damage to half their board or something, or the whole board. And it's I don't know. It's a neat card. I'll update people as I play with it more, I guess.
Interesting. I have one. Go ahead.
I think it has a lot of implications if you want to play like specific like multiple cards in one turn. Like one card that's like really like that is like Gadgetzan, for example. Like if you can like play Gadgetzan for 1 mana and you can just play tons of spells after, or even play Gadgetzan for 5 mana but have 0 mana spells that actually. It's
or you just
for that too.
You play that and you get one of your other spells and you play that as well because it's free, you know.
Yeah.
And it's like it is another card draw. I do play Gadgetzan as well, so it's pretty neat.
Yeah. Huh. Well,
you know what? It's reverse overload is what it is. That's exactly what this card is. It's reverse overload. It's like
I just discovered it, man.
You pay now for later instead of you pay later for now. Whoa.
Yeah. But usually it's kind of better to pay now for the other way around.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to pay now.
No one's arguing that. No one's arguing that.
That's true. That's true. We have entire financial systems based on this concept.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I have a very important question here because I think we're probably going to end the show. It looks like LS has already vanished anyway, so I think it's about time. But I have to ask. I'm going to post something in our Skype chat, StrifeCrow. I want you to look at that card, and I want you to tell me if that is a gnome or an elf. The card is called Novice Engineer.
Oh, the elf card?
This was a point of contention on an earlier episode, and I want to ask you now.
This is a gnome.
Yes! See?
Now, my Skype... Okay, no, I'm not going to say it, but I played World of Warcraft, and I played a gnome. I played a gnome mage in World of Warcraft, and that looks very similar to my gnome mage in WoW.
Okay. I wanted to get some more corroboration from other guests, Artosis, that it is a gnome. In fact,
that's a gnome.
There we go. All right. It looks like Artosis can't hear anyone. Oh no, he's dropping. So.
Oh, Artosis.
I'm not even gonna get my glory now. That it's kind of sad. Oh well.
Here I am.
All right, you're back.
You're back.
I thought you rage quit over the confirmation that Novice Engineer is indeed a gnome.
That would have been the end of it.
We've already been over this. She has pointy ears, man. That's right there.
It's his helmet. It's a helmet. All right, I think that's about it. The world apparently is imploding. Skype, the internet, the very fabric of time-space itself is failing. So that's a good time to end the show for this week. So we're going to do some shout-outs here. First of all, StrifeCrow, thanks for coming on. Got any shout-outs?
Shout-outs? No, I don't have any shout-outs.
Do you have Twitter? A stream?
What?
Come on, man.
No, I'm pretty much in the private world now. Like,
oh, okay.
I pretty much just play, do stuff. But yeah, I don't stream anymore, and don't really not really, I guess, in the public eye anymore. So basically, just playing at my own pace now and having fun. So
we'll bring you back in. One of us. One of us. All right, Last Shadow, you're getting very blurry, but do you have any shout-outs? So there we go. Okay.
Is it all better?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Just thanks for having me on the show. I guess if anyone's interested in like watching or anything like that, I stream usually like almost 10 hours a night, literally, of Hearthstone. Usually starting at like 7 p.m. KST into the early hours, and that's to accommodate to European and American fans or whatever, so that it's easier on them to be able to watch me because I am living in South Korea. I mostly only play Constructed, but when I do play Arena, I think my win rate right now in Arena is at 77%, which isn't too bad. So my Twitch is twitch.tv IMLS, and my Twitter is IM_LS. So anyone can message me, ask me questions, Hearthstone related, LOL, StarCraft 2, anything, and I can help you out.
Awesome. Well, Artosis, your turn.
Thanks to you guys for coming on. It was fun talking about all this stuff. I'm excited we should play some customs. Cheers to TT Sports Line by Power, my sponsors. And Simpatico, who does all of my stuff. He's the greatest producer ever. Mm.
Indeed, he is. He's the guy. You guys probably have heard of him many times. Oh no!
And everyone, check out iHearthU.com. We're
yes,
site's really picking up. We have a lot of really great articles there about Hearthstone. Trump put his guide up there for the picks. It's just went up like 2 weeks ago or something. Or
yeah, he's got his arena
we
guide
have
up there.
a lot of guides on like some constructed decks, some good forums and stuff. So everyone go check that out. iHearthU.com.
All right,
it's like
I'll say it too. iHearthU.com. So clever. It's a great site. We have a lot of good stuff, a lot of forums. If you want a place to go to actually talk about the game, that's a place where I would recommend. Also, me. Also, thanks to Simpatico. He's behind the scenes this entire time, guys. He's the guy that puts up all the cards that you want to see on the like little side window thing, and he made the intro. He does all sorts of cool stuff, so definitely follow him on Twitter. And I guess follow my stuff too, GGDo on Twitter and Twitch. That's about it for me. Thanks to you guys for coming on, and we're going to do this again. It should be like the same time every week from this point on, so you guys can get used to sort of a regularly scheduled Turn2 from that. But I suppose that is about it for the show today. Again, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.